There's an interesting trend I've noticed. Sometimes when my family goes to visit certain friends or relatives, my mom or dad will say, "Don't mention this topic," or "Don't talk about that." It's ironic that as I'm getting older, I find there are fewer topics I can comfortably talk about than I ever would have imagined. Where I once thought age would bring encouragement to discuss bigger, more consequential topics, I now find myself limited to safe subjects that minimize the risk of volatile exchange, being cautious of what I say and to whom I say it. This is a problem. And I see this happening all around our country. We have stopped listening and talking to each other. The banter is divisive, the rhetoric polarizing, and consensus nowhere to be found. Whether on a political stage, around the dinner table, or at a neighborhood gathering, difficult conversations have disappeared. Or they have turned into verbal slugfests because we have forgotten how to disagree and still remain friends. So many crucial issues are at their tipping point, but we have to work together to solve them. But people with different perspectives are so divided, and this is getting in our way. Being empathetic and understanding how an issue impacts another person emotionally is critical to resolving conflict and finding common ground. If we are unable to talk productively together, we risk running out of time to solve some of our most pressing issues, like climate change or political polarization. Frankly, I am terrified for the fate of our country if we cannot come together and solve our problem. Abraham Lincoln wisely cautioned, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." Lincoln's warning is a resounding call to action to all of us. I believe there is a path to rekindle open dialogue, encourage compromise, and seek to understand each other's perspectives so that we can have difficult conversations that are productive, finding common ground, and creating solutions. This path is rooted in the principles of structured debate. Now, what I mean by structured debate are the critical discourse frameworks that are taught in high school debate tournaments and Model UN conferences. Model United Nations, or Model UN, simulates real United Nations debate. Students mimic UN delegates and come together to discuss global challenges and potential solutions to those issues. I have been involved in Model UN for over 5 years, and I believe that the tools that I've learned are skills that everyone can and should utilize. There are 5 main rules of engagement used by the Model UN program and by the real United Nations that facilitate dialogue on divisive topics. These rules of engagement can help us come together to listen to each other, find common ground, and resolve the biggest issues that are threatening our world and way of life. Rule number 1, be curious, not furious. Pay attention and actively listen to the other person while they are speaking. Show respect for them and display a genuine willingness to hear them out. Too often, our brain gets rooted in our own point of view while the other person is speaking, and we may miss important nuances that could be the basis for finding common ground. Consider inviting the other person to speak first. And part of active listening is asking questions. And let's face it, you can't ask relevant questions if you haven't heard the other person's point of view. Rule number 2, no bulldozing. In a Model UN debate, bulldozing is interrupting. Bulldozing effectively trivializes what the other person has to say before they even get the chance to say it. We need to stop bulldozing if we're going to practice active listening. And the same is true when we have one-on-one conversations. So no interrupting or bulldozing, period. But modern TV debate doesn't set a good example either. From CNN to ESPN, commentators too often talk over each other, which produces more theater, but rarely leads to any kind of resolution. Rule number 3, focus on the policy, not the person. Personal attacks are never acceptable. In a Model UN debate, I represent a side of an argument, and the person I'm debating against represents another side of the same argument. Disagreements we have over the course of a debate are in regards to the argument, not the person or the character of the person I am debating. Sometimes in my own Model UN debates, I represent a country whose policy I strongly disagree with, like some human rights policies, for example. But the person I'm debating against has to separate me from my point of view and focus on the issue, not on me or my character. Rule number 4, reputable sources only. Only use information that is known to be credible and can be validated by reliable, reputable sources. And don't be afraid to ask someone where they got their information either. Fact-checked information is critical for constructive debate. And this is especially relevant because we are in a misinformation crisis. According to an MIT study, false news stories are 70% more likely to be retweeted than true stories are. So it's important that validated, hard facts become the bedrock of arguments. The final rule of engagement is perspective sharing, not necessarily mind changing. Even a logical argument does not guarantee that the other person will agree. If someone walks away understanding your perspective just a little bit more, you have sown the seeds for further consideration on your topic and made progress towards finding common ground. In my own Model UN debates, the people that usually win aren't always policy geniuses who memorize every single fact on an issue, but those who know how to most effectively communicate and make others feel heard. Every conversation does not have to end with a resolution. Now, that might be the end goal, but in the meantime, we just have to keep talking and respecting each other along the way. These rules of engagement are empowering, offering family, friends, neighbors, coworkers, and legislators tools to safely reconnect and communicate with each other. Better communication promotes free speech and healthy conversation. And best of all, these rules extend far beyond political discussion and can be used to cover everyday issues, from dealing with your neighbor who refuses to move their garbage cans, to conversing with heavily opinionated relatives, ensuring that all voices are heard and considered in any decision-making process. Disagreement is expected and normal and welcome as long as it sparks better communication. History has taught us that the best of humanity can emerge in times of struggle. My hope is that this crisis will bring out the best in all of us, and that by applying these tools from Model UN, we will create less polarization, more common ground, and more solutions to the big societal problems that are facing us today. Thank you.